Hello, champions. Coach Tina here. How is everyone? It is the last week of March. And I don't know about you, but I am excited about what the end of this month means to me. And that's really what I'm sharing about for us today. This is Monday Morning Motivation, and I am going to check and make sure that we are where we need to be. So we are going to go into our Empowering Champions and we will pin to featured. All right. I'm so happy to have you guys with me this morning for Monday Morning Motivation. I come on live in this community every Monday morning with hopefully a word of encouragement and some information that is going on in my life that I know could be useful for you. And really what we're talking about today is it time for change? Everywhere we look, I know in my world it's about to be spring, and we are seeing the signs of spring. And whenever that happens, that new growth is coming up, right? And we're starting to recognize the change in the season. And it does something inside of me, and it makes me recognize that it is time to think about what's on the other side of where I've been. So today we are going to be talking about knowing when it's time to march on. And there is a play on words there. Some of you know that this being the month of March, I see it as an action month. We had January, which was a planning month. Then we go into February, which is kind of the details of how we're going to work our plan. And March is the month to do the activities. That's when we really push in and decide that we're going to get things going. And I hope that that's what March has meant from you. Good morning, Sarah. I'm so happy to have you online with us today. We're talking about knowing when it's time to march on. And if you're on live or watching the replay, go ahead and put in the comments like Sarah did that you are on and where you're from. It's always great for me to know who's watching. And if you're watching later, because as a global community, that's just the nature. Plus, as moms and busy people, we tend to have a lot of things going on. So no problem at all watching the stuff later, but let me know so that I can reach out to you and say hi and just see what you're thinking about the material. So what we're going to do today is just kind of talk about what has happened in the first 3 months of the year. What went on for you, and where are you thinking the next 3 months of the year are going to bring you? Like, what's your focus? I've had the benefit of the month of March. I did 2 conferences back to back. One was 100X, which was this really strong focus on the biblical principle of kingdom and how Jesus came to bring us to the kingdom. It was a fascinating look into the Bible in a way I've never really explored it before. And Pedro Adao, the founder of this 100X community, it's like this worldwide family that we're a part of, has been doing this really good job of leading us as co-creators with God to do the thing that we're meant to do. It's very much in line with what I believe, that we are designed by God for greatness and a purpose. And with his mentoring, I am just like landing in the word in a really good way. He calls us kingdom entrepreneurs, but people that are that have that desire in their heart to have a business, because we're meant to serve God's people. And so I had that really strong kingdom focus on me in the middle of March, and then took that straight into Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within 4 days, where I was volunteering as crew. And so I wasn't just participating in the event. We get a lot of it while we're there, but I was helping people go through the event. And so that was like a different perspective and a different filter that was put on me in that event. And so between the kingdom and the service to helping people make lasting change, which is really, Tony's motto is to end suffering in the world. And he gives just billions of meals. That was his goal, was to give 1 billion meals in 10 years. I think it was 10, and he met it in like 8. And so he's already met his goal to give 1 billion meals to the world. And he immediately followed that up when he met the goal with, he wants to give 100 billion meals. And so Tony is teaching me about how you push and grow beyond what you even think is fathomable. Like when he said 1 million meals, he didn't know how he was going to do it. And yet with that momentum behind him of how important it is to feed kids, his story is that his family was very poor, and somebody came and gave his family a Thanksgiving meal, and it just changed his whole life. He didn't know that people cared outside of his family, and he saw the dysfunction in his family, and he didn't understand it. So when somebody came and brought him food, and then he saw his dad's response and what it meant to him, it changed him from the inside out. And as he became successful at the age of 19, he wanted to give back and give back and give more. And so he started donating meals. And so it's been something that has working for him year after year after year. And so each year he has pushed himself to do more and do more. So his 1 million meals was a big milestone for him. When he hit it, he was like, wow, 2 million didn't seem like very much, because he saw how easy it was to get the 1 million. So that's why he pushed himself to 100 million. But here's the exciting thing. In that 100 billion number that he put out there, he already has 60 billion promised. So he knew he couldn't do 100 billion on his own. So he went out to all these other people that he knows has a lot of money, and he's been pitching them to do what he did. And so he has people that are pushing forward with the plan that he put in place, and that it worked. So what a great role model, right? Like he is putting in action the things that he says. And I love that, because this weekend I followed those 2 conferences with a gal that I follow doing quarterly planning. And so, the year is split into 4 quarters, 3 months. And so we are about to enter into April, which is the beginning of the 2nd quarter. And she had us do a 3-hour workshop on what our goals were for April, May, and June. And, looking at what our goals had been for the first 3 months, and did we meet them, and how do we pull what we didn't finish into what we are going into and not get discouraged with that. You guys know I love goals, I love planning. And so this fit really well with what it is I wanted to do. And I see Trisha has joined us. Thank you so much for coming on, Trisha. Don't forget to comment into the feed there so that I know what you're thinking. And so the main thing that I got from Tony's work and the 100X that I just talked about is this premise of, as you're moving forward, it's important to ask yourself, what is working in what I'm doing and what isn't? And this has really been interesting for me, because coming into that first quarter, so I made my annual goals, and I said, how am I going to measure? I am multi-passionate, which means I'm in a lot of stuff. I wouldn't quite call it, maybe this is a bias, but I wouldn't call it shiny object syndrome. But it's intrigue, it's curiosity. I want to know what this person's teaching and what that person is teaching. And as a lifelong learner, those things really draw me. As a result, I have a lot of mentors and a lot of different directions that I could go in. So if that's you, let me know in the chat so that I know who I'm speaking to here. And Trisha has said hello. She said she can only get in via StreamYard. So good, I'm glad you're here. You are in my audience area. And what that means is I can see you, not on the screen, but I can see your name, that I know you're here. And you have a special chat area where you can talk to me. And I know that Sarah is on in the Facebook. So she's watching it live through the portal in our Facebook group. But I'm glad you're here, Trisha. And if you need anything or want to respond in here, just let me know. But what's working in your life and what's not is where I'm really trying to focus here. So at the beginning of the year, I started something that I called my 100-hour project. And I gave myself the 3 months, the first quarter, to log how much time I was spending in my different activities. Because what I had discovered at the end of the year was there were a lot of things that I was involved in that weren't successful. And I was frustrated with myself and with the process and the people involved. And I said, okay, am I being honest with my effort in these actions? So what that meant was I was going to track how many hours I was spending doing all of the different things. And it was kind of ridiculous. I made a sheet of every activity that I was involved in. And then in the evenings, I would jot down, I spent an hour doing this, I spent an hour doing this, several hours over here. And then my goal is at the end of this month to take a look at my hourly sheets and to say, okay, while this thing that I've been involved in didn't do anything, the reality is I spent like 3 hours in it over the last 3 months. So why would I expect that it had this huge growth trajectory, right? Whereas I mentioned the 2 conferences I went to this year. Just in March alone, I spent over 60 hours in each event. So that was almost like more than half of my 100-hour project, right? And those 2 have kind of been the cream of the crop, rising up, taking not just my attention, but my efforts to get certified in those programs and to do this and to do that. I have been spent considerably more time in those areas. And so I have to ask myself, is the time that I've invested in those good? And has it been beneficial? What am I seeing coming up from that? Because we had a great sermon yesterday at Life Church. And I loved what Pastor Craig said, which was, what have you planted and what has grown from what you've planted? You hear a lot of people, and I talk a lot about the seed growing into the plant that you take care of, then blooming. And the result of the bloom, right, is usually a fruit. And so you have to look and find the fruit. And if you don't see evidence of the fruit, what needs to happen to change that? Because we're all on this earth for a purpose, right? You are designed by God for greatness and a purpose. And with that in mind, your set of unique skills and talents and abilities that only you have, you need to go forth and expand the kingdom with that wisdom that you have been given. And it's only going to be beneficial if you're doing it, but if you're doing it in a way that allows it to grow. And that, following that plant process, if you're thinking about the different things that you're involved in, and you think about them in terms of if every idea you had or every project you were working on was a seed, are you taking care of that seed? Or is it just sitting in a package waiting to get planted? See, we want to take those seeds and we want to water them. We want to start that growth process. And when we see the breakthrough, the little sprout come out of the ground, we want to nurture that. We want to set it apart and nourish it, give it the right things that it needs to grow and, develop into what it's meant to develop. I like to call it cultivating your greatness. But if we aren't cognizant of the seeds that we've been given and what we're doing with them, they're just sitting there dormant, waiting for the right season, for the right environment. And we can stack up a lot of stuff, right? But when are you going to plant? When are you going to do the thing that you need to do? The desire in your heart, when are you going to push forward on that? And how are you going to take care of it? Today, the focus was on knowing when it's time to march on. And so I evaluated those things that I just talked about. What has grown, what is working, what's not working. And I've been doing my community now for almost 2 years. So I have a lot of data to look back on and be like, okay, I'm going to grow in this direction now. Or it seems like when I do this, I get better results so that I can serve more people, right? And so as I go into April, I am going to change my focus a little bit. I'm going to do things a little bit differently, and I'm going to see how that works, because just like little scientists, like remember your biology class when you did plant seeds and you documented their growth and how many inches and so on. I'm about to go into that season where I take all of this information from the mentors and the books that I've been reading and the results that I have seen from the things that I'm doing, and I'm going to put it in place in such a way that I can really see what's on the other side. I can envision what that final garden is going to look like with the plan that I'm going to put in place. So I'm excited that you guys are along for the ride. And I hope that you'll participate in some of the new stuff that I'll be talking about later this week and into next week. And then it'll be an ongoing push through April, May, and June. So I'm excited to share that with you. Can't wait for the rest of this week to let you know what's going on. And just wanted to remind you all that I am available for one-on-one coaching for what I call hot seats, which is where I can coach you through a breakthrough. If you're stuck in some way, if you need clarity, if there is something about what you're doing that you just haven't been able to get that momentum to push out of your comfort, that's what a hot seat is for. And you just got to reach out and let me know that you're interested in that, as well as group coaching is going to be opening up again. And we'll be able to work together in a group setting on Zoom where you can ask me your questions and we can move into some really great stuff. So I appreciate you all. I'm looking forward to working with each of you. And I hope you have a really blessed week. Go forth, march on to the last week of this month. If you're like me, you've got quite a few goals that you want to still get accomplished. We've got 5 days. Don't give up. The month is not over. You can do it. I know you can. So I hope you have a really blessed